Thank you.
Thanks, Annabelle. So we'll get started with our presentation in just a moment, but I want to introduce ourselves quickly for you all. My name is Henry. I'm a third-year admission officer at Whitman. I originally am from the East Coast, and I've left the transition to Walla Walla, which we'll speak about in just a moment. But I want to briefly pass it off to my colleagues first, starting with Fernando.
Hello, my name is Fernando. I'm one of the assistant directors of admissions here at Whitman. I'll pass it over to Louise.
Hello, everyone. I'm Louise Carneas. I am the other assistant director of admission here at Whitman. Great to be with you all today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan Crawford. I'm a senior intern in the Office of Admission, and it's good to be here.
Thanks, everyone. A couple of housekeeping rules before we get started. We do have a chat box to answer your questions throughout the session. I will be responding to questions as best I can in the chat while we present. However, certainly you can hold your questions to the end or submit them there. Regardless, if they do not get answered during this session, we will make sure to follow up with you directly and cover them afterwards. But launching into our presentation, I think it helps because we're in this virtual setting to start thinking about where we're located and how one might get to Walla Walla. So we are a town of about 34,000 in Walla Walla, and there are really two main options for students to travel to the area. First, students can take a flight to Seattle and connect to Walla Walla, or alternatively, there are some students who will be flying into an area called the Tri-Cities, about a 15-minute drive away. Students sometimes have to take a very inexpensive shuttle that goes back and forth in the area 3 times a day, but conveniently, the Portland and Seattle highways do intersect at the Tri-Cities junction. So because there are many students who come from those Portland and Seattle areas to Whitman, it is quite easy to find a friend or a housemate to carpool with and for easily picking you up at the Tri-Cities airport if that Seattle to Walla Walla connection isn't feasible. And now really it gets to the crux of what I find one of the most distinct parts about going to Whitman, and a big reason why a lot of students choose it, is the experience of Walla Walla and our surrounding area. We're very lucky to live in a pretty active downtown scene where Walla Walla has undergone this impressive shift from being an industrial to agricultural to now wine tourism town. And with a couple higher ed institutions in the area, they've really doubled down on making this more of an entertainment sector for students. So not only will you be able to stroll 5 or 10 minutes down the street from the center of Whitman's campus and take advantage of fun events like the farmers markets and county fairs, or stroll past live music and stop at your favorite fun restaurants that are always changing up, but you're also going to have this incredible wealth of places just beyond the town framework to take advantage of as well. We're so lucky to live in a climate that does have 4 seasons. And the nice part about both on campus and off is that the 4 seasons are quite manageable. You may have a week where it gets below freezing in the winter, a week where it gets above hundreds in the summer, but never too oppressive on either end, and nice enough that you can really be outside and take advantage of the resources all around us year round. You can see right at the bottom right corner, we have the Blue Mountains in Oregon below us, but we're lucky to have access to everything from the mountains to the desert, to the rivers, to the Cascade Mountains in Washington. So many different fun terrains that you could take advantage of. So as you can see, some students are spending some of their free time hiking, mountain biking, skiing, snowshoeing, so many fun things you could do with your time. Between those outdoor activities and the space you have just off campus to help escape that maybe small, tight-knit liberal arts campus bubble that some students need to change their scenery once in a while, you have this great juxtaposition of activities that will keep your entertainment available throughout your time at Whitman. Now I kind of want to help make sure we cover some of the most distinct aspects of being a Whitman student and parts of the curriculum and hands-on experience. So with that, I'll pass it over to Fernando.
Hello. So yes, I'll be covering kind of 3 distinct areas or unique programs that really highlight Whitman's values. The first of these being our interdisciplinary curriculum, second of which being more of our hands-on learning approach, and finally a little bit about our engaged community. So let's go ahead and get started with our interdisciplinary curriculum or our disciplinary approach. I really believe that the best way to illustrate the way that we approach that would be with kind of our flagship environmental studies combined programs. That's across many different departments. You can see on the screen all the different programs that our environmental studies program can be combined with. So you could have like a combined program, environmental studies in art or biology or chemistry, those sorts of things. So you're able to combine the different things that kind of interest you in a way that has a lot of real world application. There's other combinations outside of environmental studies as well. This is just kind of the biggest one on campus, I would say. But other ones, like physics and astronomy, are often combined. Those sorts of things are also fairly simple to do. There's also a plethora of off-campus studies programs that are either semester-long or kind of our shorter crossroads programs that really help you kind of explore your horizons, or expand your horizons. There's a lot of options both within and across our various different departments, and these are very well supported by things such as our multicultural interest housing communities. Say, for example, La Casa Hispana, which is a really great way to kind of immerse yourself within a Spanish language culture before going on one of our various off-campus studies programs to some of the Spanish-speaking countries in the world, as well as, say, like the German house, or das Deutsche Haus, which can also help you before going off to one of the German-speaking places. So we have some really great support to get you ready to be on your way for some of these off-campus studies opportunities. Next, talk a little bit about the hands-on approach that Whitman has. And this is kind of best illustrated through their natural science opportunities, specifically things like pre-health, where students come together through groups like the Pre-Health Society that sends just under 40 students to medical school each year. So it's a great number. Also worth noting that pre-health is actually a track and not a major, simply because you can major in so many different things and still end up going on to medical school. So you have a lot of different options when it comes to that. We also have kind of really a myriad of research partnerships with some really great and well-renowned organizations. Say, for example, the Fred Hutchinson's Cancer Research Center, Mayo Clinic, Beckman Scholars, a lot of really great places and opportunities for our students to take advantage of right away. Along with that, we do have the STEM Hub, which is an excellent center for group studying, tutoring sessions, and really like collaborative learning, which I think really helps Whitman stand out. It's designed to ensure that students of all backgrounds feel supported in pursuing STEM majors. Also, our location here is actually a big plus because it allows for some really unrivaled field research opportunities kind of throughout the entire Pacific Northwest. Like, say, the biology department field trip to gather samples from the Pacific is one of the very many opportunities to go out there and get some of that field research experience. Then also a little bit about engagement. The community action and pre-professional development. This is where we can talk a little bit about the Whitman Internship Grant, which is a way to fund students' unpaid internships, which really helps eliminate some of the financial barriers to taking on some of these unpaid internships, where it's a $3,000 internship for a domestic internship, or a $5,000 grant for an international internship. So it really helps cover some of the financial burden if going to one of the major metropolitan areas if you manage to secure one of those unpaid internships. 94% of students who apply for the Whitman Internship Grant receive it, so they have a very good chance of receiving it. Along with that, we do have a few other really great programs that can help our students gain some real-world experience right here in the Walla Walla Valley. The first of these being the Consulting Corps, which connects students to Walla Walla community organizations through essentially what are management consulting positions with the aim of benefiting nonprofits in the Walla Walla Valley community. The next program would also be our Community Fellows programs, where upperclassmen work at prominent Walla Walla organizations and businesses, helping address economic, social, and cultural challenges that happen right here in our very own community. Then there's also the Student Engagement Center, or SEC, which has a 4-phase plan for every single one of our students. They meet with every one of our students one-on-one and individualize things like resume writing, cover letter writing, career counseling, as well as helping facilitate alumni networking through our Witties Helping Witties program. So we have a lot of really great support there as well for these engagement initiatives. And next, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Jordan to cover the next part of our presentation.
Hi, everyone. That's me. My name is Jordan. I'm a senior politics and race and ethnic studies double major, and I'm on the pre-law track that Fernando just talked about. So for me, one of the most defining features of Whitman, and arguably the thing that sets us apart from other liberal arts colleges, is our student community. My involvement earlier this year in the Power and Privilege Symposium really embodied sort of that student community. And this year I had the honor of serving as the exec director for the Power and Privilege Symposium, also known as PNP. PNP seeks to challenge the Whitman community's pre-existing worldviews based on a better understanding of the experiences of others. During the week of events leading up to the symposium, students, faculty, staff, and even Walla Walla community members are encouraged to speak to their lived experiences and how those experiences have shaped their views of the world. This year we had B. Angela Davis as our keynote speaker. And really what the symposium strives to do is to educate the community about the power structures prevailing around the world, even the college itself, and question many of the paradigms and assumptions that we all grew up with. PNP is meant to be a safe space where members of the community, the Whitman community, can express their experiences on campus. Now, PNP is a huge event, and while it might offer a different depiction of the Whitman community, that sense of belonging can also be found in the academic sense of things that Fernando just touched on. I mean, professors here are super smart. They're super understanding and inclusive of their students. As a politics major, some of my most memorable moments at Whitman included chatting about capitalism and Marxism with professors and other students. And being respectful of others' opinions is a vital part of our Whitman community. And just to wrap things up, you know, as a Black international student, my involvement in the symposium and in other organizations on campus, such as the Men of Color Association, also known as MOCA, Greek Life, and the Debate Society, have significantly shaped my views on community and activism. As a prospective lawyer, someone who's now studying for the LSAT, I'll take the lessons I've learned about empathy, organizing, and allyship with me into the real world. And the support from the Whitman community that I've experienced and witnessed during my time here was overwhelming and unlike anything I've ever been privy to. And the weird but cool thing about Whitman is that while there are tons of room for personal space and time, you never have to be alone. And it's, for me, this collective sense of unity that makes me proud to be a Whitty. So I'm gonna hand it back over to Louise.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I just want to emphasize or share really quickly before I start talking, feel free to ask any of your questions in the Q&A function. I don't think chat is enabled here, but yeah, we're happy to answer after this portion of the presentation. We're going to open it up just to questions for the rest of our time with you today. But first off, I think a really important piece that we haven't touched on yet is the application process, right? How you can prepare a really strong application for Whitman and frankly, like some similar holistic liberal arts colleges, and how we actually go about reviewing these applications. Maybe the most important things to keep in mind right now, and most of them are still a little ways down the line, are our deadlines. But before I start talking about those and kind of while we're still talking about like the planning process for preparing your applications, I do want to share, even though like shockingly it has not come up yet, that we are living in the midst of a COVID pandemic, and we are reviewing applications absolutely in that context. We know that the pandemic has affected all of our lives, but to different degrees and in different ways. Like, we realize that the things at your high school also might have changed, the curriculum, some things that are easy to describe on paper. There have been a lot of new challenges in our current students and prospective students' lives, which we are absolutely taking into account as we review your application. So please don't worry about a slimmer extracurricular list or high school that maybe switched to pass-fail grading, we have a lot of means of being aware of those. And one thing about our application review process is that at Whitman and at most colleges, right, you have kind of a territory manager and admission officer for the area that you went to high school in. So we're going to know the kind of unique approach that your community and your high school had to handling the pandemic. Additionally, if you live in a part of the country that has been effectively shut down for 6 months, I used to recruit in the Bay Area, so I saw that happening. Please don't worry about that either. Context is key. So with that in mind, these deadlines, you still have time to prepare. We have 2 early decision deadlines and 1 regular decision deadline. We do not offer early action at Whitman. All of our deadlines, or none of our deadlines, are rolling, I should say. They are hard and fast deadlines. So if you apply today, or if you apply January 15th, you will still be considered in the exact same light for admission and for merit scholarships. Early decision, for a regular decision, I should say, we are reviewing the bulk of those applications in January around that time. So we won't get back to you with your admission decision until usually the very beginning of March, about a 6-week turnaround for that. For early decision, our turnaround is between 3 and 4 weeks, depending on the volume of applications. Early decision, as I mentioned before, it's not early action. Early decision is the binding one, which students have used for their top choice colleges or the most selective schools on their lists. The one catch in early decision, or the catch on our end, is that we must be able to meet your need fully, or you'll be released from your early decision agreement. One thing that Whitman has done to make students feel more comfortable, not just about applying early decision, right, but just applying in general, is instating our early financial aid guarantee. So currently on our website, there is a form that you can fill out with some financial information and submit this to Whitman now before you've even applied, and we will tell you what your scholarship package would be, including merit scholarships. So merit and need-based, I'll break those down a little bit further, but if you are thinking of early decision or just thinking about applying to private colleges, to small liberal arts colleges in general, the early financial aid guarantee is really unique and a really transparent program. We rolled it out last year actually, but this year with the financial uncertainty of the pandemic, just with kind of the chaos going on right now in the world, we are really hoping that it'll help you and your family feel like you have a little bit more of an understanding of what's going to come out kind of the other side of the college process. And I'll talk a bit more about financial aid in a moment, but I do want to focus again on the application, what you actually need to submit to apply. So in addition to financial aid forms for students who are interested in financial aid, we are a common application school. We do review the common application essay. Not all colleges do, but we don't have an additional supplement for Whitman. The common application is a breakdown of biographical information, educational history, extracurriculars, this essay, and then some pieces that will be submitted by your high school, like letters of recommendation, transcripts, and a school report. Those won't all actually pass through your hands, but you can keep track of them, whether we've submitted them or not, in your Whitman applicant portal. And we don't require a Whitman specific supplement or a Whitman specific essay. I would say not to be too nervous about that. If you want to show exact fit or exact interest for Whitman, we found that the rest of the application is totally sufficient for that. There's actually a lot of material here, and there are also a lot of opportunities to talk about any special circumstances that you have been facing, a specific spot for you to talk about how the pandemic may have uniquely affected your life, but there's also the additional information section, spots on the common application to talk about gap year rationale, to talk about any changes in your high school, so you will be able to paint a complete picture. And also just through your extracurriculars, the attitude you show in your essay, and of course like those that feedback from your teachers, we will be able to tell, you know, how successful, how happy you'd be on Whitman's campus. When we look at your grades, also context is key. We want to make sure that you're going to be successful here at Whitman, that you're prepared for the academic rigor, but we know that a challenging high school experience academically can look like so many different things. So again, your admission officer will be super aware of your high school curriculum, any external factors influencing that, and will be reading your application very holistically and in context. Moving on again to financial aid, or circling back, Whitman students, or Whitman as an institution, really values need-based financial aid and making Whitman accessible and affordable as much as possible for our students. Only about 40% or slightly less than 40% of our students are graduating with debt at this time, and that package is close to the lowest on the West Coast, including public institutions. So need-based financial aid is definitely a bigger component of our financial aid policy than and is merit aid. We do award that as well, but need-based financial aid will be determined by the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Those are the forms you would need to submit for that early financial aid guarantee I talked about before. If you've done so beforehand through the guarantee, we would just read your application with that information as well, or review your financial aid application with that information as well. Merit aid, however, you do not need to submit those forms to apply for it. You're automatically considered for merit aid with your common application and transcripts. So don't worry, if you're not seeking need-based financial aid, you may still qualify for a merit scholarship based on your performance in high school. Those range from $10,000 to $25,000 each year and are always renewed over your 4 years at Whitman. So they can also help to make college more affordable and help Whitman become one of hopefully many affordable options that you have. They're often combined with need-based financial aid scholarships to make our average scholarship package. Oh, it's actually not listed at the bottom, but this past year it was about 47,000, 45 to 47,000. So it's typically a combination of two factors, merit and need, that is making Whitman affordable to students. We are test optional, which I didn't mention before with components of the application, maybe intentionally, but I want to emphasize that this is not a reactionary policy here at Whitman. We've been test optional for 4 years, and I can guarantee to you that you have the same likelihood of admission and you have the same likelihood of receiving a merit scholarship if you apply without testing. So if taking the tests, just being able to is something really weighing on your mind. Keep in mind that a lot of CTCL colleges and a lot of liberal arts colleges already have a policy in place for being test optional, and that we will be able to review your application holistically without those scores. The final piece of your application is talent-based scholarships. I'll talk about this really briefly. We have some awards for students with skill in debate, music, theater, and fine arts, and those applications will be available once you've submitted your Common App to Whitman. You'll get access to an applicant portal, which I mentioned earlier, where you can keep track of what we have and what we don't, and that's where you'll see links to apply for these additional awards. So nothing additional is necessary for applying for merit. For need-based aid, you would need the CSS profile and the FAFSA into us by the deadline of your choice, and for talent, there will be a small supplemental application. So that's how to get our, or to take advantage of our financial aid. And with that being said, financial aid and admissions, like that's kind of like the most technical piece that we talked about today. So we're happy to answer questions about that, but also Jordan is here. He's got a lot to say about student life, and we're all, the rest of us are admissions reps. So I'm happy to share any ways we can help. Feel free to head into the Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Louise. So yeah, again, we'll answer questions up until the 45-minute mark when the session ends. And again, if there aren't any questions that do get missed by our team, we're happy to follow up with you directly afterwards. I do have a question right now to start. There's a question wondering if we could talk a little bit more about housing requirements and options on campus. Fernando, would you want to start with talking about some of the requirements on campus, and then Jordan, maybe speak to your experience in residential life here?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Could you repeat that one more time? I cut out a little bit.
Yep, just about residential life and housing on campus and some of the options or requirements for students here.
Yeah, so students are required to live on campus the first 2 years. So you would be living inside one of our various residence halls. And always when I'm talking about residence halls right now, I try to suggest going onto our YouTube channel to check out what it's like inside every single one of them, because we actually have residence hall tours that take you inside every single one of the rooms, just so you can kind of see what it's like being inside of there. You can start living off campus by your junior year. Technically your sophomore year if you're going to be living in one of our interest house communities, which are off campus, they're across the street. But then typically by junior year, some students do start living off campus, but still fairly close to campus. They tend to rent some of the Whitman-owned houses or some of the apartment complexes fairly close by. Jordan, I know you're living off campus currently, so you can kind of say your experience.
Yeah. I lived on campus my first year. I lived in Anderson Hall. If you're coming to Whitman, live in Anderson Hall. It's the best hall. Anyone who tells you otherwise, they're probably lying. It was an amazing experience, whether it be, with our RAs, the residence assistants, or the SAs, the student academic advisors. They really worked to make it an inclusive and enjoyable community. And then in my sophomore year, I lived in my fraternity, which was also a very cool experience. And then my junior and senior years, I'm living off campus with one of my closest friends at Whitman. So it's been a very diverse residential experience for me at Whitman, but really good.
Awesome. There is another question also about Greek life as well. And Jordan, since you mentioned that you were part of Greek life at one point, I wonder if you could speak to that presence on campus.
Absolutely. So I always preface a discussion about Greek life with my own experience of Greek life. I'm from Jamaica. And so coming to the US, the only sort of knowledge I had about Greek life was American Pie and Animal House. I kid you not. It was a weird time. And so coming here is like, there's absolutely no way I'm gonna be in an American fraternity. I got here and they kind of knew me before I knew them. They knew that I'm a foodie. And so they were having a barbecue as a rush event. I went over and I really got to know these people. And you know, that stereotype of the frat guy really went through the door for me. And I got to see a lot of my fraternity brothers, as mentors, as people to look up to. And for us, there is about 30% of our student body involved in Greek life. And so when you think of Whitman, we're a small liberal arts college. Three things sort of define Greek life for me. We are a philanthropic organization, so we do a lot of charitable work. We're also academic, so we have one of the highest GPAs of any club or society on campus. And third, we are some of the biggest proponents of sexual assault prevention on campus. And so really reshaping that image of Greek life is amazing. And besides, we're a social organization, so we still give you that chance to dance to some cool music. But yeah, that's Greek life for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan. We do have a question from one of our students about deadlines. If I'd like to submit an art portfolio, does that mean my Common App should be submitted before the deadline so I can get access to the additional link and complete the supplement by the deadline?
That is a great question, and we actually do have kind of a process in place to help with that. So the talent scholarships are actually due, at least for regular decision, on February 1st. So that's 2 weeks after our early decision deadline, or actually I think this year it falls on the last Friday of January, which is maybe the 29th. So even if you submit your application, your common application at the very last minute, which like I said is totally okay with us, you still have some extra time to get that portfolio together.
Awesome. Another question for our admission team would be, what are the primary traits that you look for when evaluating Whitman students to make sure that they are a good fit or that they will succeed on campus?
Good question. I would say that I like to see students that are somewhat involved. So making sure that you're filling out that extracurricular list as much as you can, because we're looking for students who are going to hopefully make an impact in their community or in our community. They're not just going to stay inside the residence halls and never do anything. Along with that, students that are kind of intellectually curious and want to challenge themselves. So seeing some form of rigor on your transcript is always helpful. It doesn't have to be, like 20 APs or something like that, but just seeing that you've taken some level of academic rigor, whether those be honors, AP, IB, Cambridge, any of those sorts of things. I really do like seeing, because that really helps to show that you're not scared of kind of a more rigorous academic track.
There's another question about the rigor on campus and the academic advising and academic support. I wonder first if Louise, you could tackle some of the main resources we do have, and then Jordan, if you could speak to your own experiences with tutoring or other advising systems at Whitman that you've utilized.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to start off and kind of give an overview. So we talked a bit about residence life. I think that, Whitman has a really high first year retention rate. It's been like above 90% for some time. And I think that a lot of that can be attributed to, the first year retention rate means students who are coming back for their sophomore year, can be attributed to financial aid. Obviously, you should read into it as success there too. But a lot of it comes down to like your first year residence hall and kind of making that into a one-stop shop for kind of social and emotional support from your resident advisor, but also academic support from your student academic advisor. So you will be your first year at Whitman living with a roommate and the many rooms around you, kind of acting as a section. And for your section, there will be a sophomore student who's there as kind of like a frontline resource if you ever need help putting together a study guide late into the hours of the night, if you want to put together an outline for a paper. This is just kind of like I said, like the front line of support, but it's something that's right next door to you and kind of normalizes the idea of just knocking on somebody's door and asking for help, right? Reaching out for any kind of academic support at Whitman is not stigmatized. Your RA and SA are also kind of resources to connect you to our larger and kind of more formal system of academic support and advising in the Academic Resource Center. The Academic Resource Center, if you have an individualized education plan, is the group that you will be corresponding with and meeting with on campus to make sure that you're transitioning to college courses smoothly. The Academic Resource Center has writing fellows that you could meet with maybe even once a week to focus on your writing and classes in general. They have specialized tutors, both peer tutors, which you could be someday at Whitman, and professional tutors to help with specific courses and specific disciplines. They consult a lot with our pre-med, pre-law, and pre-business groups to make sure that you're getting really good advising on studying for the MCAT, the LSAT, the GMAT, any tests that you might want to be taking either during or right after your Whitman education. So the Academic Resource Center is awesome in kind of our formal department, which also manages those student academic advisors, right? Those fall under their umbrella, and also has really good resources on just like mental health and connections to our counseling and health centers on campus too. We realize, academics can sometimes have a major impact on how you're feeling in general, right? If you're stressed about school, you might just be feeling stressed. So we want to emphasize like balance, holistic learning. And I also can't believe I haven't mentioned professors yet. They are another kind of like first, I would say if I were feeling stressed in a class, maybe not at first when I was getting used to getting to know my professors really well. My first semester, I went to a high school that was a little larger than Whitman, and I wasn't as used to, them being like the first person I'd go to with questions outside of the classroom. But at Whitman, it absolutely can and should be like that. So if I was ever struggling with a paper, really the first thing I would do was go to office hours, which again, will feel really normal by your first few weeks in. And your professors are also really familiar with the Academic Resource Center and ways that our campus could better serve you. So a little long-winded, but there are so many kind of sources of help when it comes to academics and a healthy mentality towards academics too.
Awesome. And Jordan, what experiences have you had with the Academic Resource Center or other similar areas to utilize?
Yeah, I touched on this at the end of my my part, but I went to school in Germany. I went to a UWC school, and one of the things that really shocked me when I came to Whitman was how many, like the number of resources that we have here. It is ridiculous. We have, it's so many, right? And so if you need help, and I mean with anything, something as simple as I needed a pen for class, it was there for me. And so the Academic Resource Center, remember my first year, I took calculus, probably the worst decision of my college career. And, I ended up with an A in that class. And that's testament to like the student academic advisor that Louise touched on, who I literally went to at like midnight with a calc paper, an exam. And luckily she was an angel in disguise and she helped me. And I got an A+, right? So when we talk about the number of resources that we have here, as a student, I'm a politics major and I'm graduating this year. That's not by luck, it's not by chance. It's by the sort of helpful, resourceful community that we have here, whether it be the SEC, whether it be the number of tutors we have, the health and counseling center when you get, bogged and burned out, which you probably will. They will be there to help you. And so, yeah, good stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. We do have a question about life for student athletes on campus, what their day-to-day life looks like, and also specifically what some of the resources on campus we have that are devoted towards the varsity athlete programs or even club athletes too. Fernando, do you want to take that one?
Specifically the athletes?
Yep, for student life for athletes and some of the resources we have on campus for athletes.
Yeah, sure thing. So I would say some of the resources specifically when it comes to athletics. So we have both the Baker Ferguson Fitness Center as well as the Sherwood Athletic Center, where athletes can, they do their workouts, they're able to do some of their practices, places like the multipurpose gym or outside at some of the various fields that we have for students to do that. In terms of, you mentioned intramurals as well, I believe, right?
And club sports too, yeah.
And club sports too, yeah. Then those are also run in kind of the same way. So something that I really love about intramurals is the way that it actually is able to kind of bring our community together quite a bit, because it's not just necessarily like just students, also staff and faculty often compete. Like say, for example, I know we've had in admissions a couple of different teams. I know we had a basketball team that didn't do so hot, as well as a dodgeball team that actually ended up being the intramural champions this past year. So we had some really great experiences getting to compete against students and just seeing the way that students interact through some of these great programs. I think that's a really great way to get involved throughout your college experience. Hopefully that helps answer some of that question.
One thing I'd also add for varsity athletes specifically is that in the faculty handbook, right, it says that your professors can't put you at a disadvantage for in any sense, right, for missing class for competitions. However, obviously all the faculty are very well versed in that handbook. I mean, they are probably at the basketball games with you, cheering you on, right? It's a campus that's super supportive of athletes. We are a Division III school, so we don't award athletic scholarships, and you are, a student first, right? You are admitted to Whitman and you are a varsity athlete, kind of in that order. But I would say that just the way that the campus like rallies around you, and it will feel like a big part of your life, right? You'll be traveling with your teammates, you'll be studying with your teammates. There's a room, I don't know if it's still called the Fishbowl, Jordan, confirm. There's a room in the library that varsity athletes by team will like meet each, not the same team each night, but meet up for study groups, a lot of great resources for studying on the road. Your coach can act as an academic mentor as well. And yeah, like I said, professors are going to be super accommodating, and I'm genuinely intrigued to hear how your season is going for the most part. So a lot of great resources.
Awesome. We do have a question from one of the students about study abroad, specifically when students typically go. Is it during their junior year or other times? And then also, for the entire panel, maybe speaking to some of the variety between the abroad overseas options as well as some of the domestic internship-based semesters as well that you can take advantage of. Louise, do you want to give that one a go?
Yeah, absolutely. So Whitman students at this point, about half are studying abroad, maybe a little less than 50%. And usually during your junior year, and I shouldn't have said studying abroad, the correct vernacular is off-campus studies. So studying off-campus, some of those programs are domestic. There's some really cool internship programs in Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, and Semester in the West, which is kind of a semester-long road trip through the American West in conjunction with our environmental studies program. You should check that out. But in general, I think Fernando mentioned earlier that we have close to 90 study abroad programs in, I think, 45 now different countries. So the way you would go about approaching that is really up to you. If you want to focus on your major when you're abroad and maybe do an internship or a field study really close in line with your academic pursuits at Whitman, you can do that. You can also just pick a country maybe where you want to continue working on fluency in that language, or just a part of the world that you've always wanted to visit, and then choose from a variety of programs that might be offered in that country or in countries speaking the language that you're interested in. You'll have an off-campus studies advisor who will work with you and with your faculty advisor to make sure that you're going to be able to finish your major and graduation requirements without a hitch when you return. That is very easy at a liberal arts college. And actually, I studied abroad as a Whitman student, and I didn't end up taking any courses towards my major when I was abroad. I took a break. I studied abroad in London, and I studied art history. It was a great place to do that because London stole all the art from the rest of the world at some point, and it's there still, and you can go to all these museums. But no, I took some really cool courses on museum politics and took courses that took advantage of, being in a city like that. I got my city fix when I was abroad. I came back to Walla Walla. I was thrilled. So that was, I guess, the way that I wanted that experience to go, but I also know students who did the research for their senior biology or marine biology thesis in Costa Rica or Tanzania. So up to you, and your financial aid will go abroad with you. You also have access to these summer abbreviated kind of crossroads programs, which are courses taught on Whitman's campus with a 3-week or so summer component, and there are scholarships for that as well. That's one way to like go abroad or off campus. Yeah, so many ways to do it. Also, the sun is rising here, as everyone could probably tell. I am glowing so brightly.
Awesome. Thanks, Louise. Question for Fernando. Can you please discuss the Career Service Center, the Student Engagement Center, in a little bit greater detail with some of the internship opportunities and maybe where students are placed either while they're in school or what their opportunities are beyond Whitman?
Yeah, so for that, I mentioned a little bit of this earlier where the SEC has or Student Engagement Center has one-on-one meetings with all of our students just to kind of make sure that your needs are being met whenever it comes to both any community service opportunities that you're looking into. Like say, for example, if you've done something currently while you're in high school and you want to do something similar, once you move out here to Walla Walla, they're able to place you there, as well as for internship opportunities through things like our Community Fellows programs, typically when you're like a junior or senior, or just for any like regular internships outside of the Community Fellows program as well here in the Walla Walla community. But then they also have some really great placements, typically out in either like Seattle, Portland, down in the Bay Area of California. I know some have also gone down over the East Coast to places like DC, New York, Philadelphia, places like that. So you do have some really great opportunities there as well. So it's not just things here in Walla Walla. Along with that, when it comes to career placement, we have between a 94 and 96% placement rate 6 months after graduation, depending on the year. So they are really great at making sure that our students are getting very well prepared to go on to whether it be employment or on to say graduate school. I know one number that I like mentioning is that while 20% of our students go on to graduate school right away, more than 60% of our students complete a graduate degree program within 6 years. So the majority of our students are going on to complete a graduate degree program. So Whitman's does a pretty good job of making sure that you're getting very well prepared for that next level, especially through things like the Student Engagement Center or the SEC. And then with also getting you with really great connections with Whitty's or Whitman alums inside your chosen fields through things like the Whitty's Helping Whitty's programs, which has events I know in Seattle, Portland, and down the Bay Area to kind of help kind of like meet and greet and kind of get some of their experience, as well as they also have some meetings here on campus. Right, hopefully that helps. I think that might also help cover a little bit of the Alumni Association question that I saw pop in.
Yep, awesome. Thanks, Fernando. And so kind of our last question to wrap up while we have time. Louise and Jordan, I wonder if you could potentially speak to what it's like to navigate the alumni at Whitman, how one might connected to those, and Jordan, your experience right now, trying to look at the post-Whitman side of things.
I can start off. I am an alumna of Whitman, and I have a lot of friends who are also alums of Whitman. So I navigate that community on a daily basis. But I would also say in terms of like networking, I can say, and yeah, because I'm really well connected still with my class, I can say for a fact that like, I mean, at the very least in like kind of urban centers and I mean, especially San Francisco and Seattle, places where we tend to get a lot of students from each year, it is very, very easy to get pretty much an informational interview with like anybody in any industry of interest to you. Right now, I would say a lot of my friends and peers are interested in like the tech industry. That is kind of up or not up and coming. It has arrived in the world. And so through our connections and just kind of like the cities where we have like the biggest database or biggest kind of alumni databases, those happen to be places with really like booming economies and job markets, even now with the ways that COVID has kind of inequitably affected like the workforce. So Whitman students will always, you'll be able to find someone to find a connection, an alumni connection or a parent connection. That's also a really important factor, I think, in the industry of your interests. Actually, when I was abroad in London, I'll touch back on that. I had interviews or informational interviews, really just meetings with 2 different alums who lived there. One worked in consulting, one worked in real estate, one had grown up in London, one was an expat from America like me. So I really all around the world, I would say you could do the same, and it will feel like a very approachable community. But I don't know, based on like current alumni placement, you should feel very empowered to enter the job market directly after you graduate. And you'll also always be able to find alums to speak to graduate school, those experiences. Yeah, Jordan, I don't know if you have any experiences thus far with the alum community in law school, anything like that.
I think we're actually out of time, but Jordan, I'll have you follow up with the student afterwards, but thanks so much.
Great. All right. Thank you all so much for being here today. Yeah, we had a great time chatting with you, and we're happy to hear from you sometime soon.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to inform you that when this window closes, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this was just one of the many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions as well. In about a week, you'll be able to find the sessions recording as well as all the other sessions that you've signed up for. I'd like to thank Whitman College for being able to share their time, and thank you for being present and participating.
Thanks everyone for showing up. Take care. Have a great Sunday.